Hello, everyone. This is Marks again from Cabbit Crossing Publishing, and I'm back with another awesome author from our new anthology, Fairy Tales, Folklore, and Fables Reimagined. And this time I'm joined with Colten. And can you maybe tell people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Colten Fisher. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, though soon to be Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I graduated from Seton Hill University with my master's in creative writing, along with Marks. Before that, I was at Washington University in St. Louis for both English and accounting. I liked both, and so it's worked out well for me. Um, Anything else I should cover or that the other authors have covered?
No, I think that's a good start.
Oh,
Well,
I like playing D&D. That's a big thing.
yeah, I think we could probably tell people that, well, yeah, anyway, if you watch the Cabot Crossing Publishing channel, you may see more Colton in the future playing
I
some
hope so.
RPGs. So why don't you tease your story, Sirens and the Nebula, to us?
The story's name at the time of this recording is still in a bit of flux. The current iteration is Starsiren, which I think is a higher chance of being the final version.
Oh, sorry.
Um, oh, you're fine. In the current rounds of critique that are going on, I think Starsiren is what I want to go with. But if people message me back and say they hate it and have other recommendations, maybe it will change by the time people are seeing this. But it is a sci-fi siren story, uh, which is hopefully apparent from the title. And the idea came to me in a mix of ways. First, Mars approached me with the idea of the anthology, and I was thinking of what ways I could twist fairy tales and fables. I Every year it seems like I kind of go on a sci-fi kick. It never really goes away. I'm a fantasy sci-fi guy, but there's always a few months where it really rockets up and I play a bunch of sci-fi video games and I read a bunch of sci-fi books and I write some sci-fi stories. And that was happening right around when I was making a homebrew class for a friend of mine for a sci-fi D&D campaign that we were playing. And it had a little feature in that class called Sirens of the Nebula that was just sort of a throwaway reference that then percolated and gave me an idea for a character in a nebula in the future who starts hearing signals out in the void, and they have sort of a siren effect.
Nice. Yeah, just so like a behind the scenes for people, what we do in anthology, we do a few extra steps maybe than some people do. We have optional like critique groups with the authors once their stories are greenlit.
Which I love.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and it kind of builds a little bit of sense of community and authors get to know each other, get some extra feedback, and then we do the final editing rounds with our editors. So yeah, everything's a little in flux until it gets locked in.
Yep.
So this is about fairy tales, folklore, and fables, or twist on them, different genres and such. So along that lines, are there any other fairy tales or folklore stories or fables that that you remember well or influenced you in some way as you were growing up?
The first book I ever learned how to read was The Three Billy Goats Gruff. And I'm not sure if I actually learned how to read it or if I checked it out from the library so many times and made my mom read it that I just had it memorized. But either way, I could, by myself from beginning to end, read The Three Billy Goats Gruff. And that was my favorite story for a good chunk of my young childhood. Um, I read other fables and fairy tales. My mom had a bunch of kind of like life lesson stories that her mom had told me that she then, or her mom had told her, and then she told me. Things about like not taking the biggest cookie, just taking the one that's closest to you, that kind of story, like life lesson. But then I was a big Greek mythology kid too. So the demigods, the heroes, all of that I loved reading about, which is not quite fairy tales, fables, and folklore, but it's adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are the big influences. Disney was in there. I read Brothers Grimm. I consumed the media, but those were the big ones.
Awesome. Now, since we're doing a Kickstarter, and if you're watching this video pretty soon after it airs, then the Kickstarter has launched and is going in July, and a little bit of in August. So we have a number of different stretch goals. We have different reward tiers. Can you talk about any of the bonuses you're in particular, a certain reward tier add-on that's also D&D related or 5e
Yeah.
related?
The main sort of stretch goal that I'm with right now, that I'm excited about, that I'm participating in, is uh, creating stat blocks for characters or monsters in all of these stories for D&D 5e. Through the process of reviewing other authors' stories, I've already read some of the stories in the anthologies. I have some ideas for what certain stat blocks will be that I probably shouldn't spoil. But by reaching that stretch goal, I get to then go and take all of these characters and figure out how difficult I think they would be to fight, what abilities they would have, whether they would have legendary actions or not, and make a stat block for them. So you should donate to the Kickstarter so that I get to do that.
Yeah. And I think we've tiered it in a way where like at first it's 3 stories. It's your story that we're just talking about, and then
Yes.
there's 2 other authors who are doing some stats.
I'm excited to read Madison's story.
Yeah.
She's another author who I know, and I haven't gotten to talk with her in a long time, but she's clever, and it's good to hear that she's another D&D nerd.
Yeah. And her story's Bats and Bolts. I mean, working title currently. And Amber's story, just make sure I'm caught up with where we're currently at on the story names, is Peach Samurai. So
Ooh.
in the first tier, we'll have all 3 of those stories made. And then we have stretch goals like snuck in there where like once we hit certain levels, we'll unlock more stories and more stories until we can get them all. Because there's a lot of stories, and I don't want Colten to make a whole monster manual out of
I'll
this
do it.
one. I think you'd enjoy it though.
I would.
But yeah, so any of you tabletop RPG fans, we got a really cool reward for you guys. So everybody remember, you can go to cabbitcrossing.com to find the Kickstarter or the anthologies, after the fact, if you come across this video, much later, or find any of our other books like Tales of Monstrosity and Dragons a Different Tale. And how about you, Colten? Where can they find you?
At coltenfisher.com. The spelling of my name is unusual enough that I got the domain.
Nice. Yeah, it helped with my domain name too.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks so much for chatting with us. It's been great. And till next time, everybody.
Thank you, Marks.